Good day to you from Anagalactic on a Tuesday, the 14th day of July in 2026. Up here in our inset window, we have a couple of faces side by side, whom you may recognize. The man on the left is Jiddu Krishnamurti, and the man on the right is David Bohm. Both of these men have extraordinarily peculiar lives. David Bohm was probably the greatest of the quantum mechanists. He died rather prematurely, but an absolutely unique man. Jiddu Krishnamurti, a man who was born in India, also led an absolutely extraordinarily unique life. And these two men could not be more different if they tried. They were able to collaborate for over a decade and made a series of videos, which sadly are in black and white, but you can go to the Krishnamurti Foundation or really anywhere on YouTube and in other places, and you'll be able to listen to any number of these conversations that were conducted between these two absolutely unique men. What do they have in common? Why would they be talking with each other? They're both quite spiritual men, and each of them have certain aphorisms that they've uttered in their lifetime. Both men, of course, have passed away, but their legacy has not passed away at all. What I'd like to do today is explore what we do here, which is the secrets of the universe based in physics, and to explore that subject, that wide, huge field of science, in the spiritual manner which is befitting of a human. We're spiritual creatures. It baffles us, it seems, that we're stuck in these bodies, but it is part of a tremendous plan and a tremendous game, and it seems as though everything's working out perfectly. Everything works like clockwork. That is the basis of Western mechanism, that the entire universe is a giant cuckoo clock that ticks along, and it's absolutely astonishing how well it works. In fact, it works so well that it simply cannot be comprehended as such. It should not work at all. There's no reason for rational logic. There's no reason for scientific proofs. Things make sense. We can make sense out of anything. There are no unanswerable questions. There are no absolute mysteries. Everything works. And that leads to a dismissal of the underlying cause of what makes everything work so perfectly. Both these men addressed this most astonishing existential paradox, that things are miraculous, but that they're so miraculous that one can jump to the other side of an enantiodromia. That's a Jungian term from Carl Gustav Jung, whose works I read thoroughly, although I couldn't finish all of his works because it covers 22 very thick volume books in the Bollingen series, which you could acquire probably about $1,000. You could get all the works of Carl Gustav Jung. In my youth, into my 20s, I collected about 14 of those volumes. I don't know how I did it. I was working on a clerk's wage, but I managed to collect 14 of Carl Jung's books, and I've read innumerable paperbacks by Carl Jung. I was a tremendous Jungian scholar, really not a scholar, a researcher. And what did I get out of it? I just remember a couple of things, but really that's all you need out of a wise man, just a couple of things. You don't need to sit at his feet forever. And in fact, when you try to sum up what David Bohm had to say, it really just comes down to one very simple principle, which we're going to cover. Krishnamurti was slated by some super society from birth to be the next world leader, some theosophical society, He has connections. He's from India, so everything weird comes out of India. But somehow he transcended the whole rigmarole and just renounced everything that was promised of him, and he seemed to be fulfilling all of the predictions about him. Something, I don't know, perhaps having to do with reincarnation. For all I know, they're very much into reincarnation. The Hindus are. But I've heard Krishnamurti debate with very devout Hindu scholars who were really trying to get Krishnamurti to admit that reincarnation is valid because it's part of their dogma, their doctrine. And Krishnamurti is just about the most evasive man. If you're trying to pin down Krishnamurti, you're going to end up being pinned. He just can't be turned. He's just someone that you cannot defeat him. He already knows what you're thinking. It's like he's clairvoyant, or whatever is the word when you can read someone else's mind. David Bohm was more along the lines of what you would think of as a geek, a nerd. He was withdrawn. The only man more withdrawn that I've ever heard of than David Bohm among the physicists was, of course, Paul Dirac, about whom a tremendous book is written called The Strangest Man, and he certainly lived up to that moniker. But the reason I have these two men's faces together is because they collaborated so wonderfully. I've listened to several of these interminable dialogues, which are just as dry as toast. There's no fireworks. The most celebrated of the many videos they made together, which are in black and white, and we all are sad about the lack of color in those days. But they had on another person who would sit in with them, and they're just dreary, they're just monotonous, there's just nothing is really said of any great importance that I could ever tell. But it's just amazing just to listen to these two men. Whatever they say, it just doesn't matter. Just to hear them, because they're such amazing human beings. And we are spiritual human beings, and we love each other by nature. We're attracted to all other people. In a perfectly sound human being, there's no trace of hatred anywhere. Which leads, of course, to a tremendous existential question: is why do men pretend that they hate each other to the point of destroying themselves utterly, which is just about to happen, and perhaps even worse, to destroy this beautiful planet, which was set in motion so long ago on a course of perfection, the like of which cannot possibly exist anywhere else in the universe. This is by far the most unique imaginable place, and there are no other planets with intelligent life. That's just an absurd notion, because it took all the energy of creative force to create this perfectly balanced, extremely fragile, and yet extremely resilient ecology. This ecology is the direct expression of God's mind. And a man who cannot realize that is simply not a man. He's not even human. That's the very first thing that a child realizes as the child's mind turns on. Of course, the child cannot articulate a notion of God, which is an anthropomorphic projection. The old man in the sky. Well, a child doesn't think that way. In fact, a child is not really thinking. And we can learn a lot from observing children and how they interact with the world. Absolutely open, absolutely innocent. There have been times when I've been walking along, perhaps in a funk or a deep thought, just trudging along as I used to do in the corridors of my high school, when I actually literally ran into one of my teachers who was 6'4". He was an Irishman. I really loved this man. He was a superb teacher, but he had a heart of gold. And he saw me coming down the corridor, And I had my head down because I was very introspective, very reclusive. I was on my way to becoming another Paul Dirac or David Bohm, just someone out of touch with social reality. Because I was always thinking. I was thinking deeply, and I don't even remember exactly about what, but he had been observing me. A good teacher really takes notice of each one of his students, which that's quite a gift. Um, and I ran into him almost literally. And I looked up at him, and he was smiling down at me. And he said in the most compassionate tone, said, "It looks like you have the weight of the world on your shoulders." And I never forgot that. It was wonderful. Of course, I also felt a little bit strange. Is that really what I look like? And suddenly, or gradually, but really rather suddenly, since I never would have thought of this myself, I realized that I was burdening myself over much for whatever reason. I don't even remember what it was that made me act this way. I never talked. I was always just, I liked books. And I was a normal kid, apparently. I mean, it wasn't like anybody thought that I was strange. But apparently, my teacher really thought that maybe he should tell me something about how I looked. And that's what these men do to you. A real wise man makes you aware of yourself. Because what is it we're trying to do? Why are we studying science? Why are you listening to me? These are more or less rhetorical questions. We both know the answers, but they may be hard to articulate. We're curious creatures. We want to know things. But a child, in observing his environment, I just say his because his and her just gets to be tedious. Women are always included. Whenever you say man, of course you mean woman. It's ridiculous. But of course, there was such a thing as male chauvinism for a long time. Probably still exists. Whatever, but we have problems. We interact and we have friction, and there's all these notions that we're not listening to each other. That's really what makes people very upset. You can actually drive a child insane by systematically not understanding what the child says. This was actually done as an experiment, rather cruel, but it brought out a certain principle of life that in a kindergarten, I believe it was kindergarten, somewhere like 20 or 30 kids, an experiment was done where the teacher was instructed that just to single out one student, and whenever that student asked a question or was communicating with the teacher, that the teacher would act as though she were listening, but would answer in a completely irrational way. Such as if the child asked for a crayon or something the other kids were doing, the teacher would say something like it's down the hall and to the left, and just leave the kid perplexed. That child went psychotic and had to undergo extreme therapy. So a child can't tell the difference between love and attention, and we never shake that. We demand attention. We vent at each other because nobody's listening to us, nobody understands us. It causes all sorts of deviant behavior. I need a new identity because you're not giving me enough love. And so now I have a new identity, and you're not going to be able to ignore me. Because we need each other. We're desperate for each other's attention because we want to give back. We're trying to express ourselves to help each other. And we just naturally expect the same because that's how we came into the world. Our mother cared for us. That's not lost on a child. And so we need attention. And what I am doing is basically just extending what every child does, what I've been doing all my life. I'm looking for love. I'm looking for attention. And the way I tell myself that I'm doing that is that I'm sharing the secrets of the universe with you, and that makes me happy. What would really make me infinitely happier is if somebody responded. Every now and then someone does. It could be just a simple comment, way to go. I think one guy wrote, "You're doing the Lord's work, brother." That made me happy for days. Now my situation is somewhat remote. I'm somewhat isolated by design. I want to live alone. Since my wife died 18 years ago, I have no interest in this world whatsoever, which is an exaggeration, probably to get attention. But what I want to share with you today is the result of an entire lifetime of attempting to find love, the expression of love. In my own life, how it was expressed to me, how I've tried to express it back to others, the search for the ultimate source of love. I want to return to the subject for a moment of children, because the great master, whatever you might think of him or the milieu in which he exists in religion or in whatever society or culture, but the great master Yeshua, whom the Americans called Jesus and the Arabians called Esau, so he has several names and several languages. Jesus is how he's known in Greece. That's but the name that we know in the West is Jesus. I don't particularly like that form of his name because I'd rather say his name the way he heard it, the way he would actually say it. We're not sure it's exactly right, but Yeshua would be the sounds. Yeshua. The great master said, "You will not enter heaven in any case unless you enter it as a little child." And that word, translated from his Hebrew, which some people say is Aramaic, but it's Hebrew. He spoke Hebrew, but it was translated into Greek. And that word in the Greek text is actually little child, not just a child, which ranges all the way up to about 10 years old, but a little child, more like 5 or 6. A little child just waking up, really, just learned to walk, can now hold perhaps a spoon, perhaps is precocious and has already learned to ride a bicycle, perhaps not in Jesus' day, I'm not sure there were bicycles back then, but perhaps could ride a camel. Which would be quite a task because those beasts are enormous, and even adults have a difficult time training those things. I apologize for that. That is the first of our musical accompaniments. It will be 102 degrees today. Right now it's dawning. The sky is starting to twinkle as the sun approaches the horizon for one of the hottest days of this year. And now that the sirens are departing, eventually we're going to hear the jays squawking at the top of their lungs. We're going to hear a hawk just screech for hours. You won't, but I will. And I can't shut the door because already I'm sweating. So these two men, I just want you to look at their faces again because we're going to go on to another frame here in a moment. But I just love these two men. I just think that they're so special. And the fact that they were able to collaborate for 10 years, I just think is just one of the most precious encounters I've ever had with two of the most intelligent and spiritual men of the generation just before me, or 2 generations, depending on how you measure a generation. So what I'll be doing now is expressing to you the wisdom that I have gleaned from 55 years of very intense research into the Holy Scriptures of this world. I am a writer by trade. I've written every single day of my adult life since I was 13 years old. There has never been a day that's gone by that I didn't write something down. With the possible exception of my extended trips into the High Sierra that I took every year for over 25 years, to disappear into God's country, the range of light, as John Muir called it, which was my cathedral. Although I've attended over 7 different denominations, not just to visit, but to live with them and become part of their community. I have also taught the Bible overseas in 2 cities in Ukraine called Kiev and Yalta. I am a devoted Bible scholar. I believe that I must be, by now, one of the foremost Bible scholars, perhaps of all time. That's my whole life's work, is to express the beauty of the Holy Scripture. But as one grows, speaking strictly for myself here, but I'm not alone in this, you become quite humble. It's inevitable if you're doing it right, and this will be true of anything that you undertake to master in your lifetime, that there is a cycle. First of all, you're excited, you're just learning a lot, you're just going forward. And then there's a period of intense study because you realize that you have to catch up. And that can take a very long time and it never ends. But then you reach another phase where you're achieving mastery. And this will affect your psychology adversely. And there's no way around it. Because if you're serious, you're going to make mistakes. And if you're seriously devoted to the human side of life, the spiritual, really, you're going to overreach. And again, I can only speak for myself, but I'm certainly not alone. You'll become megalomaniac. I certainly have become megalomaniac, and I probably will remain so for the rest of my life. I can no longer shake it because I know too much. And I also am now able to evaluate people who pretend to know aspects of the subject that I've devoted myself to, and I can see their weaknesses and their hypocrisy and, of course, their lies. And this is extended to science. After my wife died 18 years ago, I took a vow that I would never again earn a cent, and I assumed that would lead to my early death. And that was my intention, was to let the sand run out. She was the Princess of Ukraine. I met her when she was 18. I married her before she turned 21. She came to the United States and was perfect, and we had a perfect marriage, and she was extremely happy. She married me because she recognized that I'm a man of God. She told my sister that, and my sister passed that on to me after Irina died of an incurable form of cancer. And after 18 years of living alone, not entirely alone, because no man makes it alone. You're never alone. But relatively speaking, I have no interest in I have no interest in life the way I used to live it. Once she departed this world, I lost my mind. Completely. I lost my mind. No man makes a decision to let the sand run out. There have been men such as Al-Ghazali, who when he achieved the height of scholarship of any man, the smartest man who's ever lived, absolutely spiritual, he was teaching Islam in Baghdad under the full blessing of the vizier. Everybody loved that man, but he was not complete, and suddenly he had an awakening where he became Islam to a new level, and he renounced everything and became a monk, a hermit. He disappeared, although he continued to write, and he wrote the 2 greatest books that have ever been written in or out of Holy Scripture. Al-Ghazali wrote a book called The Revival of the Religious Sciences, and then before he died, he never went back to the university because he achieved Sufi level. And then he wrote a book called The Alchemy of Happiness. And if you are confused and you just are willing to take a chance, get a free copy of The Alchemy of Happiness and start reading it. And if that doesn't wake you up and cause you to become enlightened and begin to turn towards heaven, to turn towards the light, to turn towards true monotheism, and to fix yourself, then you're probably hopeless. and I hope you take it with a grain of salt from a man who's given up on this world completely, I believe that you probably are hopeless, and there's nothing I can do to help you. But I made a vow, not only to let the sand run out, which it has not. Heaven has preserved me. For 18 years I have not made a penny. I will never work again. I don't want to live. I don't want to be here. I don't care about you or even me. I want to leave, but I'm not so far gone as to commit suicide. See, you're listening to a ghost. I'm not really here. I don't care about you in the slightest degree. And it does sound like I'm trying to convince myself of that, doesn't it? This is self-therapy. I now want to turn to the subject at hand so we can get into science, so I can do what I do best, which is express to you the beauty of creation that will save your soul forever if you let it. And you're going to have to become as a little child, not just as a child. You're going to have to become a little child. Absolutely open, and that's dangerous. In this world, if you actually follow that, I would say from youth on up, you'll be captured. You'll be captured by those who are waiting for you. And if you show that kind of innocence and openness, the goddamned Mormons will get you. Or the Jehovah's Witnesses will capture you. Or you'll be taken by some nutcase religion, which every form of Christianity is psychotic. And I'm going to be expressing that to you, so you don't get trapped into Christianity. Now, I'm a Christian, but I am the only Christian that I have ever met, except for a handful of men and women that I have had the great, extraordinary privilege to meet throughout my life. But you will never meet a Christian except me. I am your only contact with Christianity. So that's what I'm going to be telling you today, because in my old age, now that I'm over 70, and somehow by a series of miracles, I'm still alive after 18 years, having lost my beloved wife, I assume that I am under the commission of heaven to tell you everything that I know that's true, so that you can have it before I die. But you're never going to give me anything. There's nothing you can give me. And you can shove your money right up your ass. Everyone else on YouTube wants money. Well, those people are not worth anything. They're worthless. Don't ever say that about a human being specifically, going ad hominem, or you will burn in hell forever. I love saying that now. And let's start there. I just gave a video day before yesterday on hell, and I could hardly stop laughing throughout the whole video. Because, of course, I'm a typical American juvenile delinquent at heart. And, you know, I've said H-E double hockey stick so many times, along with the favorite one, the F word, and every other foul, disgusting, curse, swear, or shit word. See, there it is. I'll always be like that. Well, that's actually a good sign, because you haven't lost your humanity. Again, speaking for myself. So I'm going to give you the wisdom of the universe that you're just never going to hear from anyone else, because they don't have any. So the first item up here, I'm just going to read this because the resolution of your screen probably doesn't permit you to read what's there. But I will be just passing through this, and I'll expand this so you don't have to look at my face. Orienting with the I Ching. Now, that's usually with an I instead of Y-E-E, but I'm tired of hearing people say I Ching. So it's Yi Jing. God is a dynamic presence who can be contacted directly. That's the teaching of the immortal holy book, equal to the Bible, equal to the Quran. That's the I Ching. but I'm the only man on earth who knows how to read that book since Confucius, and a man named Al Huang. Just one of the most amazing men. I really, really count very highly the extraordinary men that I've met, because it's really hard to be more extraordinary than I am. I can't hold a candle to these men that I really, really look up to, and that's very, very good to know for me, that I am not the apex of existence. Oh my God, no, I am not. And you learn humility. That's what I was trying to tell you. You go through a cycle, though. You can't stay humble forever. You just can't stay humble forever. You have to try. You have to try your hardest until you overstep the bound and hurt yourself. Hopefully it won't be too painful. But if you don't try hard enough to fall and bust your ass, then you are not trying hard enough. You have to make mistakes. You have to become wrong. In order to know the difference, what you never want to do is overstep a certain bound. And that's called morality. Morality. You know what morality is? It's so simple. You know what Yeshua said. You love others as you love yourself. You treat others the way you would want to be treated. That actually doesn't always work, because some men hate themselves so much that they really want to treat others the same way they treat themselves, which is cruel. So every wise saying has a hole in it. You can take it from me that that's true. You'll find out that that's absolutely true. It's always a rebalancing act. You're never done. You're never going to be perfect, even though God demands that you do become perfect. That's in Holy Scripture, that you have to become perfect. You can, but along the way you're going to find out exactly what it's like to be imperfect, and that you're always going to be imperfect. And that's going to be part of your final perfection, because you are unique. And you don't want to concentrate on that, because you'll become like me. And God, that's the worst thing that could happen to a man, is to become like me. But it's perfect for me. And I hope that I can help you find your way. That's the most that a scientist or a religious guru can do, is give you choices. Love cannot be forced. Understanding cannot be coerced. You can't make a man have fun. There's just no way to drill wisdom into someone. It can't be done. You have to want it. You have to seek for it. You have to search. You have to keep going until the leeches are on your neck, till the mosquitoes are biting the shit out of your ass, till you fall and break your leg, until you smash your face open, until everybody's laughing at you. If you're not doing it that way, you're not fulfilling your potential. And that will bring us to David Bohm, Infinite Potential. Orienting with the I Ching is a title to an essay I'm going to be writing. Or not. God is a dynamic presence who can be contacted directly. Children know God. When you wake up into this universe, you're in the presence of Almighty God the Creator, who loves your soul, and that's why you're here. And that's exactly what a child learns. And it's the first thing a child learns. And the only reason any child ever forgets that, or just doesn't carry that forward into maturity, is because of the kid's goddamn society. Just surrounded by cannibals, beginning with your parents. Don't ever diss your parents, or you'll burn in hell forever. That's the 5th commandment. No, you don't say anything against your parents. They're second only to God in your life. They basically created you. She fed you milk. He worked his ass off. Now, there are exceptions to this, because this is a demonic world. It's ruled by Satan, who is a spirit, who has 200 angels that run every society on earth and make men hate each other. And so will you. If I did, you will too. And then you'll regret it. And you may end up committing suicide. Be sure that you don't do that, because that's game over. Everybody has to hit bottom. And if you haven't, it's because you're a pansy. You're a coward. You will hit bottom, or you are not trying hard enough. Second, Parakletos and Muhammad, the Paraclete, sometimes called the Holy Spirit. The Paraclete was promised by Yeshua the Master to be with his followers after Yeshua was murdered by the Jews, that he said, once I have to leave this planet because the Jews are going to kick me off the planet, I will send you the Paraclete, which is a Greek word, which means a comforter or someone who comes alongside, really a guide, kind of like my teacher who said, you look like you have the weight of the world on your shoulders. Well, that was a man who had come alongside, actually face to face, or actually me facing his chest because he is so tall. And that's a Paraclete. Well, that in Islam is a known, they know about that saying in Islam. And they say it's one of the hadith, although it's a minor hadith and it's disproved and it's not true. But it's part of their tradition, and they remember even the untrue ones. They have just as many untrue traditions as they have true ones. And that's all a very rich tapestry, which Christianity has none of that. Christianity is basically jejun, which means it's sterile. But Islam is the flower of the earth. Islam is the true culture of the earth. There have been other cultures, actually a few hundred, but Islam is the greatest. It's the purest and best and most lovable. They're the most wonderful people in the world. Taken statistically, comparatively, European and American Christianity is hateful. It's disgusting. So you need to be aware of these truths that you've become aware of, but you're no longer behaving as a little child and seeing things the way they are. Christianity is despicable because the white race is sick. But the brown race, centered in Iran, really came out of Saudi Arabia. These people are much closer to reality, and they're very great lovers. They love humans. I'm not talking about in the sack, you stupid. Why did I think of that? Because I'm just as stupid as you are. So the Paraclete is said to be Muhammad, and that Yeshua predicted Muhammad. He did, but not for that reason. This is not very often taught, but I'm just going to tell you the truth, because I told you that's all I'm going to do, is just tell you the truth that no one else will ever tell you. The book of Revelation is actually the prophecy of Yeshua from heaven. Do the Islam people know that? Not quite. But I'm here to instruct the Islam people, all 2 billion of them. I'm the new Imam. I'm actually the Mujaddid, the Imam who only appears once a century. That's just a tradition which is also stupid. But the principle is true. Every now and then a unique man comes along, and Islam needs one now. And all the wise teachers around the world, including my own teacher, say that Islam is currently in decline, probably because of the goddamned influence of Europe and America that's infected the pure culture of Islam. But Muhammad was predicted in the book of Revelation by Yeshua, whose throne is in heaven. And he was in heaven, he is in heaven now. And when the revelation was given through his angel to John, so that it came to us by pure guidance of heaven, there is some information in the book of Revelation that predicts the appearance of Muhammad. Once you know the actual reason for why Muhammad had to become the last prophet, it makes perfect sense. But nobody will ever tell you those reasons except me. So why did Yeshua predict and actually enact the appearance of the last prophet on earth? It's because Israel had been the chosen nation. And God has children. God is a father. And if he wants to have children, he's going to have children. But he had to destroy his own children. They murdered his son. And of course he knew that was going to happen. So did Yeshua. All of this was planned. But it was planned in order to entrap a defective angel. And that's what's been happening on earth since the dragons of Eden, as Carl Sagan, the Satanist, said. Carl Sagan, you might not know who that is. Well, you have a modern incarnation of Carl Sagan, and his name is Elon Musk, a Satanist. And you can take it from me, because I can smell one of those bastards through a locked door. So Muhammad was sent in order to inform the true Semites, descendants of Abraham, that the days of Israel are over, they're dead and gone, and they're never going to come back except in satanic form in order to entrap Satan. And Israel is a trap for Satan. That's why they're murderous. That's why they're genocidal. That's why they have no humanity and no morality, is because the nation, the very nation of Israel today, is possessed by Satan. And they're trying to destroy Muhammad's children. They're not Muhammad's children. They're God's children. Those are Christians. And they're the only Christians that actually believe in Yeshua. The white Christians don't. None of them do. And I am the foremost authority on Protestantism and by extension Catholicism. You can't trust any of them. All of them are Trinitarians. They're not monotheistic. They don't believe in just one God. They say, and they will stake their lives on what they consider to be the fact that Jesus is God. That's why there's a hell. It's for them. So Muhammad appeared at least for that reason. Not only do the Islam people take the place of the Jews, they take the place of the Israelites wholesale all the way back to Jacob. That's no longer the people of God. Although you have to be cautious. Remember I told you, there's a hole in every single piece of wisdom that sounds absolute. Don't you ever make fun of a Jew. Don't you ever become anti-Semitic. Not even once. Or you will not be forgiven for that. Because Yeshua is a Jew. Yeshua is a Jew. Don't you ever forget that. But Muhammad was an Arab, another son of Abraham, and God has children. So it was necessary, at least for that reason, there had to be one more prophet in order to reestablish the true people of God. There are now 2 billion of them. God has fulfilled his promise. And they're under attack by the Satan worshippers, both in America and in Europe, especially in England, and the offspring of the English swine nation is Israel. Those are European white supremacists. They call themselves Jews. They're liars. There aren't any Jews on the face of the earth except for what I told you about the Sephardim. And if you haven't seen that videos, fuck you. Watch my fucking videos. So that's one reason why Muhammad had to appear. But there are several other reasons, which I won't go into now, because I'm anxious to get to the next item, which is Bohm and Eastern thought. And here's my little ditty to introduce that topic. The dynamic universe is also infinitely inward. In other words, the universe goes on forever, correct? As far as you'll ever know, yeah, it's infinite. But if you've heard my videos, you know that I've proved that the universe is finite. And once you know these things, once you know something like what I just told you that no one else will ever tell you, you start to realize how obvious it had been all along. That's the nature of wisdom. It takes a huge amount of effort to dig out a gem or a nugget of wisdom, but once you have it, and you keep it, and it works inside of you, you start to realize how stupid you had been not to see it more quickly. It's because you're no longer acting as a little child. Krishnamurti said something really profound about how to face reality in a simple way. He said that you have to stop thinking. Basically, he said what Yeshua said. You're not going to enter heaven, not now or later, unless you do so as a little child. Innocent, open, natural. All right. So the dynamic universe is not only infinitely opening up outward to its hyperspheric limit that I discovered, but it's also continuously unfolding. Yes, the mandala that's continuously unfolding that Carl Jung studied in so many people's dreams and found all throughout Indian religion, that is the religion of the subcontinent. The next item down is Hanoch and the elect of God. And you may think, oh my goodness, Hanoch, that's Enoch. Enoch, one of the most hated and vilified names of all time. Well, that's just another sign of Satan's jurisdiction over you and everybody you know. Satan rules this earth. Enoch was the very first prophet. And what he predicted in that prophecy, it's about 72 chapters long. You can read it anytime you want, and I know you won't, because I'm not even going to say why. And perhaps because I told you you won't, that will induce you to do it. Because generally what I've found is any recommendation I give, and I think parents have this same impression, whatever you tell your followers to do, that's exactly what they're going to avoid doing, just to spite you. Because humans are just naturally spiteful, bitter people. In America, we don't like guides. Well, that's really sad for America. So Hanoch is Enoch, but I say Hanoch because that's the Hebrew pronunciation of the first prophet's name. Now, if you don't know anything about Enoch, he lived before the ecocidal flood. And when was that? It was not 65 million years ago, as your poisonous biologists say, all of whom are atheists, by the way. The flood was about 6,000 or 7,000 years ago. No more than that. And it destroyed all life on Earth. And the story of Noah's Ark is absolutely true, and that's scientifically provable. I proved every single word in the transmission of the flood that's in the Bible. All of that's from Hanoch. All of that's from Enoch. The very first chapters are all from Enoch. And how come we don't know that? It's because of the Levitical Jews who tampered with Holy Scripture. They excluded that book over and over again. But somehow that book survived. There is a tremendous legacy about the book of Hanoch, the Jews in Babylon, when they were captured and trapped in Babylon because they were so evil, God sent them to Babylon to punish them. That's where the book of Lamentations was written. That's also where Ezekiel prophesied. And Daniel too. They were in Babylon. And you're going to find out that that's where we get the expression Babylon the Great. In the video prior to this, I was telling you about the great whore, the mystery Babylon. That refers to Israel, which is a whore because it fucks Satan. Yeah, Netanyahu is a pimp for Satan. And the entire nation of those assholes who call themselves Jews and are not, but are fucking liars, they're white supremacist Europeans who are trying to murder the actual believers in God. And that's the subject of Revelation. So we're going to close this off because we're coming up on an hour. I will not go over an hour. First of all, to preserve my rhythm, I tend to get a little intense. I will talk for 3 hours without a problem. But the problem with that is these days, well, you can tell I'm talking about some things that involve me emotionally. Always a problem. That's too bad. You're going to have to live with me, because that's who I am now. God has emotions too. Oh, he certainly does, and I share them. The first prophecy validates itself on 2 predictions. Predictions. Part of prophecy sometimes is to make a prediction. Hanoch made 2. He made more than that, but he made 2 predictions. 1, there's going to be an ecocidal flood. That came true. But he also made another prediction. He predicted Jesus Christ. He predicted the elect one. That's who Yeshua is. He's the elect one from before the foundation of the world. The foundation of the world. You know what that's talking about, the foundation of the world? We don't have enough time to go into it now. It costs $10,000 to become one of my students. So send me $1,000 down, and I'll trust you for the other $9,000. And then I'll teach you. Not until. Because an American doesn't believe anything unless he pays through the ass to hear it. And so you're not going to get any wisdom out of me of that nature until you pay me a ton of money, which I will burn in front of your eyes just to make you cry. You see why I need to desist. So let's wrap this up. So that's the book of Enoch. But what I was going to say is, when the goddamned Jews were trapped in Babylon, they wrote a fake book of Enoch. A fake book of Enoch. Why the hell would they do that? You know who the main character is in there? Metatron. Look it up, kid. Look it up. That's your homework. M-E-T-A. Metatron. Metatron. Invented by the goddamn Jews in Babylon. That's where we get Babylon the Great from. It's referring to those whores. In the next item down, we have the Evangelion, the Evangel of Revelation, which is the most beautiful book ever written. Promise of God that if you hear that and understand it, which I will be teaching you as soon as you send me all of your money and your first... No, now you don't have to do that. I'm just posturing so you'll listen. Sorry. I don't know when I'm posturing or not now because it feels so good to be so fucking angry. Don't live alone. It's not good for a man to be alone. Except me. I'm dying. You better listen to me before I die. Okay, the book of Revelation is so beautiful, not only because it shows you the new heavens and the new earth, but it also shows you hell, literally hell, being thrown into an abyss along with Satan's ass. Or Satan's butt, sorry. So the book of Revelation explains irrational humanity. Why is Israel attacking Iran? Why have they dragged the United States into this shit? Well, what the hell is going on? Well, nobody knows. None of the political or economic or military commentators, not even on the great Glenn Deason show, have a fucking clue, and they say so. He's totally irrational. Trump is out of his fucking mind. And they're saying things about Netanyahu, which just 50 years ago, they would have been tracked by the FBI and hauled off to prison for speaking anti-Semitic sentiment. They all say it now. Netanyahu is a bloodthirsty whatever. Well, Revelation tells you to rejoice. This is great. Yeah, I know the Islam people are being butchered. That is not great. Don't ever... You see, people lose track of the fact, 60 million or how 6 million Jews were massacred. It's like, well, that's a number. And finally, you just become numb. No, you need to see a picture of just one human being slowly starving to death in a death camp. You have to look at one human face. You have to see a baby whose mother is just a bloody blob next to the baby who's screaming and can't understand why mommy isn't holding her. It's because mommy just got shot by some Israeli psychopaths. And you need to see that baby screaming. Or vice versa, you get to see the mother who just saw two of her children massacred in front of her eyes. And look at her face! That's 6 million Jews. Except it's not the Jews now. They didn't learn their lesson in Hitler's schools, did they? So that's why the book of Revelation is so important. It's important for several dozen reasons. It unifies all of Scripture and explains everything about every religion at every level to the conclusion that you'll be orgasmically happy. Except you won't. Because you're perverse. Well, I'm here to bitch slap you awake. But I can't. Not even that would work on you. You would simply resist. You would let yourself be killed rather than be saved. You're that far gone because Satan owns you. And the last piece of wisdom as we come up on exactly 1 hour, the Quranic Hadith. These are traditions, but they're stronger than traditions. The Quranic Hadith is stronger than the Quran itself. And I'm authorized to say that, and don't you ever talk back to me. I'm the head imam of Islam now, and what I say goes. So the Quranic Hadith and wisdom are so closely allied that even though the Quran is called the testimony, which it is, but Islam is the gold. The Quran, you don't need it, okay? It's not really Holy Scripture. You're kidding yourself. But it is holy. It's just not very important. What is important is the transmission from heaven to the Arabic people, because it changed them completely. They're now the people of God. There are 2 billion saved souls on this earth. None of the Christians are, but all of the Islam people are. That's an exaggeration. And that's 1 hour. And now I have to desist. I have to fight fire with fire. You've been lied to systematically with the most unbelievable lies that I am forced to exaggerate just to get your attention. And you are going to listen to me or you're lost. Mark my words. Keep looking up. I'll be back. I'm not going to leave you. That's what Yeshua said too.